Hi, guys. I hope you enjoy this story that you would have heard had we been in church today. We miss you so much, but we want you to still hear God's word and know his truths. So, this story is about how God has plans for his creation, and they are always good and unfailing. Let's see what it's about. Our story takes place in Old Testament times in the hills of Gibeah, only about 6 miles north of Jerusalem, about 1,000 years before Jesus lived on earth. What was wrong with the grass of Gibeah where Kish's farm lay? Was it not as juicy or sweet as the grasses whose scent drifted on the wind from the distant hills? I guess you'd have to be a donkey to know. But there must have been something that day that lured Kish's donkeys away from the safety of his farm and far away to the grasses over the hills. Kish must have been upset when he noticed the missing donkeys. Donkeys were the cars and trucks of his day. You rode them and used them to carry heavy loads, and they were expensive. To lose she-donkeys was even worse. You weren't just losing a car or truck, but a car or truck factory. Kish counted on the mother donkeys to provide him with baby donkeys to use in the future. Kish looked everywhere for his she-donkeys, but they were nowhere to be seen. This matter of lost donkeys was serious. Before long, they might become a lion's dinner or be the happy find of a new owner. "Saul, come quickly, I need you!" Kish called out to his only son, a tall, handsome young man. "The she-donkeys have wandered off. They are nowhere to be seen," Kish replied. "Take one of the servants and go find them," he said. Saul obeyed. He and the servant prepared sacks of food and water and set off in a huge 60-mile circle around the farm. Up and down the hilly country of Ephraim they went. They turned eastwards up to Shalem and finally back through the land of Yemeni and toward Zuph. They looked down the grassy valleys and up the hills for the she-donkeys, but no donkeys. "The donkeys are nowhere to be found," Saul said to the servant. "Come, let's go back, or my father will start worrying about us too." Saul's advice would have been good if this journey had really only been a matter of lost donkeys, but the truth was, this trip was about a lot more. God had planned for this trip to take Saul away from his home in Gibeah and to the city of Ramah in Zuph, where the prophet Samuel would anoint Saul as the first king of Israel. The Lord had already spoken to Samuel of his plan. "Samuel, the people have been asking me for a king. About this time tomorrow I will send him to you from the land of Benjamin. He will be a servant looking for his father's donkeys. Anoint him king of Israel. He will deliver my people from the hand of their enemies, the Philistines," the Lord told him. Samuel heard the Lord and believed. He knew that the plans of the Lord never failed. He didn't know who this man was, nor how the Lord would bring him to Ramah, but Samuel knew that this man would most certainly come, and come exactly when the Lord said he would come. Samuel began preparing the special sacrifice and worship feast for this man, as if he had invited the man and set up the time for the feast himself. He went to the market and chose a lamb. He invited 30 special guests to join them. He ordered the cook to make the feast food. Then he prepared the worship feast room at the high place outside of Ramah, where the sacrifice and feast would take place. By the next day, everything was ready. After the sacrifice is made, set aside the leg, the best portion, for a special guest, Samuel told the cook. "Make sure the 2 seats of honor next to mine are not taken," he told the servant. "They will be for my guests of honor." At last it was time for the feast. The guests went up to the high place and watched as the lamb was roasted upon the altar as a sacrifice to the Lord. They went to the worship feast room and watched as the roasted sacrifice was divided among them all except the leg, of course, which was set aside just as Samuel had ordered. Everyone was ready to eat the wonderful meal, but they waited for Samuel and the special guest to arrive. The feast couldn't begin until they had taken their seats and Samuel had blessed the food. But where were the special guests? No one knew, not even Samuel, but he was not worried. This was the Lord's plan, and his plans are good and unfailing. The special guest would come, he had no doubt. Sure enough, Saul was on his way. As they neared Ramah, Saul's servant said, "Look, there's Ramah, the home of Samuel the prophet. Everything he says comes true. Let's ask him. Perhaps he will tell us which way to take to find the donkeys," he said. "If we go to him, we should take a gift." "What do we have?" Saul asked his servant. "Look," he said, "I have a quarter of a shekel of silver. I will give it to the man of God so that he will tell us which way to take." "Good," said Saul to his servant. "Come, let's go." As Saul and the servant came up to the hill into Ramah, they met some girls coming out to draw water. "Is the prophet Samuel here?" Saul asked them. "He is headed up to the high place for a worship feast," they answered. "Go up now, you should find him. Hurry, you want to catch him before he goes into the worship hall and blesses the food." Saul and the servant hurried to the high place as the uninvited strangers. Saul and his servant knew they wouldn't be allowed to interrupt Samuel's worship feast once it began, especially for something like a matter of lost donkeys. Little did Saul know that this feast had been prepared in his honor and everyone was waiting for him. Saul met Samuel at the gateway to the high place. As soon as Samuel saw him, the Lord said, "This is the man I spoke to you about. He will be king." Samuel could see God was fulfilling his plans just as he promised, but Saul still had no idea what was going on. It was just a matter of lost donkeys to him. Saul asked Samuel, "Would you please tell me where the prophet's house is?" "I am the prophet," Samuel replied. "Go up ahead of me to the high place, for today you are to eat with me. In the morning I will let you go and will tell you all that is in your heart. Don't worry about the donkeys. They've been found. We have more important things to talk about. All of Israel's hopes are on you now," Samuel told Saul. Saul was happy but confused. The donkeys were found and Samuel was saying great things about him. But why? "Why do you say this to me? My family is of no importance in Israel." But Samuel disagreed. He took Saul and his servant to the worship hall and seated them at the place of honor next to him. The best meat was brought out and served to Saul. "This special food and these guests are here to celebrate that you have come," Samuel told the surprised Saul. Saul had much to think about as he sat there at the great feast, the guest of honor of the prophet Samuel. He had thought about his 3-day journey, and it was only a matter of lost donkeys to him, but now he could see that it was part of the bigger plans of God. What did it all mean? After dinner, Samuel and Saul went to his house, sat on the roof, and talked. At daybreak, Samuel told Saul, "Get ready, and I will send you on your way." Saul walked with them to the edge of Ramah, then sent the servant on ahead. "I have a message from God that only you must hear," he told Saul. Samuel took oil and poured it on Saul's head. He kissed him, the sign of obedience to a king, and said, "The Lord has made you king of Israel. As you travel home to Gibeah, the Lord will have 3 special things happen to you to remind you of the 3 important things. First, you will meet 2 men near Rachel's tomb who will tell you the lost donkeys have been found. By this, remember that the trip was all a part of God's plan, not just a matter of lost donkeys. Then, at the great tree of Tabor, 3 men will give you 2 of the 3 loaves of bread they are offering to God. By this, remember that God is king over you. He is sharing the rule of his people with you. Care for them his way, not your own way. Lastly, at the town of Gibeah, you will join a group of prophets who are singing and prophesying about God. God's Spirit will come upon you and you will prophesy with them. Remember that this is only by the power of God's Spirit that you can be the king you should be. Rely upon God. When these things have happened, know that the Lord has prepared you to be king, Samuel told Saul. Tell no one what has happened today. Saul left Samuel that morning and everything happened just as he said it would. Saul was a changed man and everyone noticed. What is this that has happened to Saul? Has he become a prophet? Saul's uncle had even more questions for Saul. Tell me what Samuel said to you, he insisted. Samuel told us that the donkeys had been found, Saul replied. He kept the rest a secret, just as Samuel told him to. And what a secret it was! This trip had been far more than a matter of lost donkeys. It was a part of God's good and unfailing plans.